started, I was like, one time I actually started falling asleep, and it was time to go pick up one of the kids from school, I can't remember, or go somewhere. We had to go to practice somewhere. I had to be up.
You got more core tonight.
And I was slept for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Core doesn't bother me. This core is not fun.
Did I figure it out?
So I got roll-ups tonight.
I still don't believe that's sustainable offense, especially that.
Oh, slow down. I got you. That's good.
You're supposed to slow. You're supposed to do it at the same pace back up as you do.
Yeah. It's like food or something. I'll be 1 minute.
I thought you were ready.
I am ready, but my true friend told me I have to clean my suit.
What'd she say?
Caleb didn't tell me.
He's trying to sabotage you.
Please.
Whole call right here talking to him. Okay, right here.
She had something to
And
do.
now all on Facebook. And all over the world. All over the world. Because everyone's watching this.
All the world is listening into Senko's Facebook live feed.
Would it help you if I pick my nose and put you?
Would it help me if you told me we're not live feeding this?
All right, we're not live.
No, you're lying to me. You're lying to me.
All right.
Are we getting any longer?
No, we're ready to go. All right, welcome.
I'm not using a microphone. That's another thing I'm not doing.
Well, tonight we're talking about parenting. We'll start off
Parenting time.
with a disobedient daughter.
Headstrong.
I thought you had.
He knows I don't like stuff like this.
Do I give it to you?
Only 12.
It's like a small group. I don't need a microphone. I have a lot of mouth. Okay, hold on.
22? Yeah, 22.
Okay. So this is only going to be about 15 minutes long, so if we can spend most of the night out on the parenting part of it. This kind of came up probably, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Landon was asking about a certain online game that all the kids are playing in his class, and, of course, I was like, I'm going to look it up and figure out, if this is safe, and from that, I pulled up thousands of articles, well, not thousands, but a couple articles I read about this, and then it just got me and my dad into thinking about just how do we keep our kids safe on the internet, and not just kids. I mean, because some of us are going to have teenagers very soon, so this is going to be really short, but I'm going to read just the beginning of this, because this is article, and I can email this to you guys. It's a very good article I found, and that's where I got most of these slides from. But we see news stories about the impact of technology on our everyday lives all the time. Many of us have started to think about how technology affects us personally, but how many of us actually stop to think about how it's affecting our children? Even in schools, technology is abundant. So we know, in our middle school out in our town, they actually are sent home, and high school are sent home with laptops. So this is becoming more prevalent than ever. And technology is always adapting, and it's here to stay. And there are many that do not think about the safety risk in terms of cybersecurity. A recent study revealed the startling figure that 68% of parents never check their children's online activity. And that online activity increases year after year. For a lot of children, the online world is more than the actual real world. We see it every day. I mean, especially teenagers have their phones constantly. They're always on it. And I see more kids, even Lorelai's age, who's 5th grade, that they have phones now, and they're always on it. It is crucial for our children's well-being that we understand what they see online, what is out there, both good and bad, and how it impacts their physical and emotional well-being. Okay, so this the article I found, do I hit the enter button, Caleb?
Is it the next button?
Okay. Oh, you can't see see some of it, but there are certain things that we can do. So this is kind of this group. I don't know how many of our kids actually have cell phones, because we have young. Most of our kids are kind of young, but just because some of them will be getting cell phones in the next few years, or you may have, friends that have teenagers, there are smartphone rules to implement with your child. It says that the average children these age are getting smartphones at the age of 10. There's a lot of benefits to getting a phone for your child. I'm sure, the safety of it. I mean, Lorelai and Landon, we've had this discussion years ago that the kids are not getting cell phones until they're in high school, until, certain they need it. And then they say, what use do they really need to have a smartphone that has the internet capability? So, but if your child does have it, or if that's something that's going to come in the future, there's 7 things here. Always ask a parent before downloading a new app. This article actually said before you get your kid a cell phone or anything, to create a contract with them, with different, these are the rules, and if you break the rules, there are consequences. Do not give your phone numbers to strangers or post it online. And I'm not going to read all of these to you guys, but those are the 7 that just some rules they gave. Okay, so TV time. So this is something that I know Caleb and we at home have implemented, especially, I know most of everyone has, they're streaming things now, Netflix and all those other, like Amazon Prime, Hulu. I know on Netflix you can completely put parental controls on it and lock it down. Ours, you have to actually put a code in to watch an adult show. So if you haven't done that, that would be a great thing to do, just to make sure. The kids they can get on my profile, but they cannot watch anything on my profile. So this is just what we can do to monitor TV at home. Limit the number of hours. We all know that, not to let the kids watch, obviously too much, but talk to your children about the content they watch. This is one thing that was out through the article that, for me, that it really hit home, because I'm overprotective. I'm one that you're not touching the internet, you're not touching my computer, you're not touching my phone without me sitting next to you. I have to be in the same room with you. I'm really overprotective about all of that, and the kids know it. But the article was, and a lot of articles I found, that they talk to your kids about why you're not allowed to look at the things that they can find on the internet, to have those real conversations with them, and talk about watching the things that we watch do affect us, and how important that is, not just don't do it. And I think that goes with any area of life. The only one I know that doesn't have, lockdown is Amazon Prime. I know that does not have any lockdown. So we need to watch more of letting Landon get on Amazon Prime, because a lot of times they just want to watch something that looks good. Remember Batman? That looks kind of fun, but it's rated PG-13 and has a lot of cursing in it. So it's a cartoon. Okay, the gaming stuff. So this one is a lot, because a lot of our kids, Fortnite, right? Roblox, I don't know, all these new ones that are coming out that you can get on the internet. Create yourself an account, and they can actually create their own account. And they are on the internet, and they have the ability to be able to interact with other kids and other people that are also on there. So one of the articles, and this is just on the Roblox one, because that's the only one I really looked into before I started. This was just this is pretty vivid, but let me try to get to the point. So this parent, and it was posted about a year ago, of their kid. They created the Roblox. I don't know, I'm not saying that right. Thank you, I get corrected on all the time. But that this parent created their kid account. They put all the locks on there, the parental controls. They thought everything was good. And yet still somebody was able to get in and said hi to them, asked them if they were a boy or a girl, asked them how old they were, and then they said the other players began to beckon them into a virtual house, and there was other sexual things that went on. So there are built-in features that allows parents to control the type of messaging, but internet safety experts say it's difficult to be in total control. you know, they say too, if you're gonna sit next to your kid and play it with them, you know, that's one thing, but how quick are you to shut it down as quickly as if they can see something? And then there's other internet, you know, things that they can play. I mean, anything online, I would just be very careful with it, and I would make sure that you're really investigating what is going on and what they're looking at. Social media, that I don't think any of our kids are really going to be on social media for a while, hopefully. So we'll kind of go through, get off of that. So the last thing I'll hit on, there are different, I don't know how many of you guys have something at home that you're actually blocking out if they are on the internet. I know Lorelai's getting to the age where she can actually get on a laptop to look up things for her class. And it's hard to be able, we don't have anything right now, but a friend of ours has this one, and it's called Circle. It's devoted to helping families thrive with technology and with each other. They envision a world where families can find balance and set limits. So basically, it goes onto your entire house, whatever device that you have, and it locks it down. It secures it to where you're only able to see certain things at certain times. So I mean, as an adult, you can take it off when you're ready to, but for the kids. Because the family that we have are friends with, they have middle schoolers who are having to get on the internet for their, you know, the laptop they're bringing home, but it's not secure. So I think that was it. And there's a bunch of other safety ones too. I have a whole, if you want, I can email you guys this. I read all of it, and I thought I was very intrigued by a lot of it. And then, let me make sure that was it. And the biggest thing is protecting them, especially our kids, the young ones, from online predators. It says 13% of young people with internet access have been victims to unwanted sexual advances, and 1 in 25 children have actually been solicited for offline contact, which is startling to me that is that prevalent. They target their victims through any and online mediums, social media, email, text messages, and more. Make sure too, especially as the kids are getting older, that you explain to them, do not share any personal information, know where you live, where you go to school, any of those information, you know, definitely talk to them. And also there's a lot of stuff, I mean, even as an adult, things will pop up to buy. Talk to them about if you see something coming in to purchase, never to do that kind of stuff, never to look at that. I would even be careful, and I tell this to my dad before on Amazon, because the kids will get on Amazon and they're looking at toys, right? You know, they're like, I'm going to look and see what I want for Christmas. And I don't know how many of you guys have ever been scrolling on Amazon, you've looked up one thing, and all of a sudden something very, very suggestive, either a woman in an outfit that they're trying to sell, and you're like, what are you doing? This is nothing to do with what I looked up. So I made a point to make sure the kids, let's look at this together. And also the stuff with YouTube, just to be very careful. I know that stuff came out about 6 months ago on YouTube for kids. Somebody was actually able to, the people are smart. The bad guys are really smart, and they're able to hack into a lot of stuff. They hacked into the YouTube for kids and were able to put a lot of stuff on there that was very highly inappropriate. So, I mean, I just be very vigilant. As parents, we all have to be, just to protect them, because it's getting worse. It's worse and worse, and yeah, that's all. Does anyone have any questions? I can send an email if y'all would like for this stuff. It has a bunch of different extra stuff about internet safety and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely give Wjitney your email so she can send you, because it's 15 pages and it's good reading. And I'm going to use the microphone. Okay. And good information. Okay, I have notes, but I don't have them in front of me, so I'm going to go get them. Hold on. Thank you, Wilbur. Here we go. Okay, I am going to acknowledge to you guys that parenting and grandparenting in our day presents challenges that it didn't when I parented. But kids haven't changed. Kids haven't changed in the last 20, 30, 40, 400 years. what worked 400 years ago still works today, because kids haven't changed. They're basically the same. The 3 or 4 basic principles of raising kids is still the same. Kids respond to 3 or 4 different things, and so we're going to have a time where you can ask questions, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. And some of them are going to sound old-fashioned, and I'm unapologetic about that. Some of them are going to sound archaic, but they absolutely work. I'm going to give you a lot of illustrations of my grandkids because that is my experience, and and my kids know that's just part of about being in my family is just enduring that process, okay? So I'm going to give you 5 or 6, 7, probably a dozen different ideas and thoughts of tools that you need to have and put in your kids, your grandkids' tool bag when they leave. Number 1, and you can write these down if you're a write-down person. If not, maybe this thing will work where it's on. Number 1, don't fix their problems. If they have problems, don't fix them. Don't run to their side and fix all their problems. Don't fix any of their problems. Addie likes to mop the floor, which I'm really happy about. She likes to get a little dust mat and run it around. And I watch for opportunities all the time when I'm watching my grandkids. And so last week she got the dust mop caught between 2 pieces of furniture. And she couldn't get it between those 2 furniture. And she pulled and she screamed and she pulled and she screamed. And I mean, she screamed 3 or 4 times. Now, the tendency as parents and grandparents might be to go, oh, honey, let me show you how to. None of that. I just sat there and watched her scream and let her get frustrated. And eventually she stopped and she realized if she pushed it, she could get it out. Don't fix their problems. Allow them anxiety and frustration. Abby stood up this morning on the back porch on the chair and said, get me down. I said, you can get down yourself. And I turned and went in the house. And she climbed down herself. Whatever problems they have, one of the big mistakes we make is to relieve a child from anxiety and problems. Don't do that. Let them experience failure. Let them experience anxiety. Don't run to their side fixing stuff. Last year, I was down at Karen's school. She teaches at a middle school, okay? And so it was the day that all the kids came for orientation. And I watched as parents brought their kids down and walked them to the lockers to make sure they knew how to open them, walked them to each classroom, said, this is your bathroom, and this is... Man, when I was growing up, you were dumped at the step on the day of school, and you were given your locker, and if you couldn't open it, you stood there and you were frustrated and you had to figure life out on your own. I'm a fan for the second approach, not the first. Because this is the goal. You're going to release the kids and grandkids. You're not going to be there. So as much as you cannot be there for them at an early age, and they get the tool of, no one's here to rescue me, I've got to figure this out myself. All right, let's stop. Any questions or comments? Does it sound Mayberry RFD-ish? Does it sound Andy Griffith?
Sounds great.
All right. By the way, this I can't say it because it's streaming online. This thing's ruining us.
Actually, it's not live, so
It's not live. It's good. It's being recorded, though, see?
it's being recorded, but
Yeah, I can't say it.
it's showing live at
Yeah.
6:57.
All right, so any questions or comments about that? Do you find yourself rescuing your kids? Do you find yourself fixing their problems? Do you find yourself, when they become anxious, running in there and saying, let me help you tie these shoes? You find yourself doing that?
Yes.
Stop. It gets on your nerves. Good, because good parenting takes longer and it's harder and it's more frustrating. But in the end, when they learn to be self-independent, that's when the payoff is. You know? Karen told Adam this morning, can I help you get dressed? You have to get dressed yourself. I've got other stuff to do. And she was told, does she dress herself?
No. She can. She's lazy.
Okay, see? So no more. Well, my suggestion is no more. Okay? Because all these are suggestions tonight. All right, number 2, stop complimenting them everything. Stop complimenting them on everything, you know? I see it at the playground. I took Addie to the playground out in Callahan, and, you know, I watch these parents say, oh, you did so good. They just climb up a ladder, you know, they just do the least little thing. Everything's, oh, you're so super, you're so wonderful. Stop that. They don't. All right, so I watched this show called Bless This Mess. Anybody watch Bless This Mess? There's a great scene in it. You got to see it. I want to bring it. I'm going to do it in church someday. Where this couple moves from New York City out to Nebraska. Okay, and they buy this little farm. They're a New York City couple. They're trying to make it in the country. Well, their farm isn't doing well, and so they're going to enter this chicken in the fair to win this big prize to save the farm, right? So the guy's in the kitchen sink washing the chicken in Dawn dishwashing detergent, and the old guy that's staying with him, the old farmer, walks up behind him. What are you doing? And the guy explains to him, you know, and the guy looks over his shoulder in this drawl fashion and said, that's a lot of pressure for it. You know, if the chicken's going to save the farm, he said, that's a lot of pressure for a chicken. And it's a hilarious line. I've jumped on that line, I say it all the time. By complimenting a child all the time, you're putting too much pressure on the child. Everything has to be complimented. Stop it. Whatever when you tell them to do something and they do it, that's not deserving of a compliment. That's just simply what they ought to do. Okay? Now, you don't have to agree with me. I'm just making these suggestions, okay? All right, any comments there? Hold them responsible for their behavior. Hold them fully responsible for their behavior. Don't let anything slip, especially attitudes. Especially attitudes. Okay? One of the hardest things for parents to do is to separate themselves from their children in terms of psychologically separating themselves. That's why grandparenting, I think, is a little bit easier for us, because and I understand that, we separate ourselves as far as our self-identity from our grandchildren, so we can kind of have a little more fun with them. But as far as you can, as parents, separate yourself from your identity with them. So you're here, they're there, and what was the point? Yeah, hold them responsible for their behavior. Because one of the hardest things for parents to acknowledge is that their kids are little sinners. And there's nothing wrong with a kid doing wrong, lying, stealing. They all do it. All of them. I'm never surprised when my grandchildren misbehave. There's little sinners. You know, I was walking across the parking lot with Addie, and Angie got out and said, look at the little, angel's wings?
Angel wings.
Yeah, I'm not under any false illusions. She can be sweet, but she can be a little pistol too.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah, she's a little devil. No, she's not. She's a little angel, but when she's grown older, she's gonna do this to me. I'm not under any false illusions. Kids are, okay? So don't get all broke down. Don't get all broke down when your kid lies. Okay, that's just normal. All right, so I never get discouraged when a kid misbehaves. What I get discouraged with is when parents or grandparents don't respond appropriately to it, okay? So I've asked Rebecca permission to give this illustration, okay, because I had to spank Abby. We were coming home from the fair, and I'm going to tell you my process and what I go through, because I believe in spanking in certain situations. I just do. Old-fashioned, I just do. I think it's the quickest, most humane form of response and discipline in certain situations, and I felt this warranted it. And I appreciate both sets of parents trusting me to do that. On the way home from the fair, we had 3 in the back seat, and one of them was kicking the seat. And I looked back over cut my eye, and it was Abby. She was kicking the seat. I'm not surprised she kicked the seat. And I said, stop kicking the seat. And she kept kicking it. So I turned around and said, stop kicking the seat. I said, were you kicking the seat? She said, no. I said, were you kicking the seat? No. I asked her 4 times, were you kicking this, and I said, I'm going to give you one more chance. Were you kicking the seat? Tell the truth. Nope. That was her story, and she was sticking to it. I said, okay, when you get home, Pop's going to give you a spanking. Didn't faze her a bit. So I listened to the other two boys in the back trying to talk her into telling the truth. She says, just tell him you did it. Just tell him you did it. She went right to the bedroom. Children have to be taught that the truth matters, and they held responsible for the behavior. Whether she understood that or not, she understood it after it was over. I said, go to the bedroom and pull your pants down. And I took a belt and I gave her 3 little swats. It wasn't super hard, but she knew I was angry. They didn't know you're angry. I gave her 3 little swats. She turned around, she had tears coming down. I said, before I spanked her, I said, now do you know why I'm spanking? She said, because I kicked the seat. I said, no, because you lied to me. And I said, the truth matters. You always tell the truth. And so I gave her the 3 little swats. They weren't hard. They left no marks, but tears. Because the power of discipline when you spank is the breaking because she loves me and I love her. She knows I'm angry with her. That's what hurts. It isn't the pain of the infliction. It's the fact that I'm disciplining. So she cried, and I said, do you have something to say to me? And she was slow, but she finally said, I'm sorry, and held up. And so we hugged, and I looked at her and said this, now it's over. Now it's all done. I'm not mad anymore. We're good. We leave this room. We're not saying anything to the boys, and we're good. And she smiled, and I smiled, and we walked out. And that was the end of it. But the truth matters, and she learned that. And I don't spank for any other occasions other than things that are serious. Any questions about that?
What's kind of a spanking age range?
Oh, that's a great question. Maybe it goes to different with each kid. I probably wouldn't go beyond 5 or 6. How old is Abby? 4. They get 6 or 7. Yeah, you wanting to whip Hannah?
I'll stick with Lorelai.
Do you still spank
She's
Lorelai?
10, I don't care.
Yeah. I think whatever's effective. I think whatever kind of works. That's always the rule with Sue still spank Bennett. Okay. I think whatever the rule, if you could, Jean, thank you. Forgive me. Check with Karen. She's got a couple. Yeah. Thank you. Check. Yeah. Whatever works. The rule in discipline is what works. What works. And if spanking still works with a child that's getting up a little bit, by all means do it. But it comes a time where probably other things probably become more effective and more honorable. Whatever discipline you want to honor the child and be very respectful to the child. And spanking was never meant to be abusive, and never, that thing, but always respectful. But definitely send a message that is clear. Yeah. All right, any other questions about that? Holbert?
Well, you spank and you say it's over, and then they go and do the same thing all over.
All right, watch this. The discipline doesn't end until they acknowledge that they have sinned, that they have done wrong, and that their spirit is soft with you. I mean, if you spank a child, if you feel like what they've done warrants that kind of punishment, okay, and you choose to spank, never abusing them, never leaving, the wounds or marks, but you do spank them, and they're still, it's not over yet. It's not over yet until there's a softness in their spirit, and they apologize. Abby said, I'm sorry, with tears in her eyes. She hugged me, and I knew that she was done. If you do it again, you do it again, and then you leave them in a room an hour, and then you come back, and you just don't quit until you get that soft spirit. And there's strong-willed kids. It takes a while. She's pointing at you, Amanda. Your mother's pointing at you.
No, yeah,
Well,
when
spanking,
she
I'm
was
gonna say
little,
that
I spanked her plenty. But she would just,
So that didn't hurt.
Yeah. All kids are different, and sometimes other disciplines.
what do you do when they do that?
Sometimes you have to change strategies. Sometimes the general principle is this, twofold. Number one, actions change actions. Words do very little. Words do very little. Number two, if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't work. Whatever hurts works. Whether taking something away, taking time away from this or that, taking something away, something that is going to hurt, and I've used this before, forgive me if you've heard it, but the Israelis have a war strategy. You shoot down 2 of my planes, we will shoot down 4 of yours. And we will make it so hurtful for you to ever do that, you won't do it again. And that's, Dobson said, in discipline, win, win, win. And don't stop until you win, and win significantly.
How many times I read The Headstrong Child?
Yep, there you go. Win, win, win. And so good parenting is not reactive, it's proactive. Okay, so anything else? We can get to more of that at the end. I want to get through this list. Stop telling them they're special. Okay? Back when I was growing up, special meant something else. Okay? Stop telling them they're special. That's too much pressure for the chicken. They're ordinary, but God has designed them in a special way that they need to discover. That's different. See? Every child is unique, not special. Every child is unique how they're created. They're to find their unique path. They can't, one of the biggest lies we tell kids is, you can do anything. No, they can't do everything or anything. They can't. Rebecca will tell you that right now. Every child cannot sing. Amen? Amen. You can't tell a child when they can't. But every child can do something well. So find out what that well thing is and celebrate that thing. But I'm not a fan of, oh, look how you're so special. No, you're ordinary. You're just like all the other kids. Now go do something that is special. You follow me? You put too much pressure on the chicken when you're throwing confetti when they haven't done anything. Just my opinion. Okay? All right. You're not going to agree with everything I say tonight. All right, let them go on adventures. Let them have controlled, dangerous situations. Let them go on adventures. As they get older, let them have controlled danger. I had Addie at the park, and she wandered off. And I always had her in my eye. I always saw her. I never let her out of my eye. But she thought she was off on an adventure. And she wandered around. Wjitney hasn't even looked at me. I'm waiting for this reaction.
I'm listening.
Yeah, I know. So around the little playgrounds, this little barrier, you know what I'm talking about, this little barrier like that. Do you help her over the barrier?
No, she flips herself down.
All right, she chose not to flip herself over. I guess I could see you've helped her over, but you don't.
Sometimes I do, but most of the time when she wants to get away from me, she does it on her own.
Okay, all right, so she didn't that day. So I let her go. And there's nobody at the park, but I watched her. She walked a long way away, never out of my sight, but she was on. So all of a sudden she realizes she doesn't know where I'm at. She begins to look for me. So she's off on the tennis court, back and forth, just looking all over the place. She never panicked. But you let them have some leash as much as you can, and let them go on controlled, dangerous adventures out there, walking in toward the woods where the snakes are. Now, I know we live in a different world than when I grew up, because when I grew up and I was my grandson's age, my mother didn't know where I was most of the day. I was wandering the hills, and I know there weren't predators out there, but there were dangerous things in the mountains. I could have drowned, I could have fell off a cliff, I could have got bitten a rattlesnake through the woods, but there was something adventurous about let your kids, as much as you can, go on adventures in a controlled setting. That's a hard thing, isn't it, these days? And I know you got the helicopter parents. Everybody knows what that is. Angie, are you a helicopter grandmother?
No,
You just know what a helicopter parent is.
parents that have around them all the
Yeah,
time.
on the playground. They're like afraid to fall. All right, comments? I understand the society. I understand they can be snatched in a minute. But as much as you can, let them go on controlled, I guess dangerous wasn't a good word to use. All right. Cause them to be very respectful to other people by you being respectful to other people. Make them give eye contact to adults. Cause them to talk to other adults. Benny was sitting over there last two Wednesdays, maybe a Wednesday or a night ago. He had John's phone. I said, Benny, come here. I said, give me the phone. I said, go talk to an adult. He kind of looked at me and I said, turn around and talk to Miss Bev. And he turned around and he stared at her. And she stared at him. And finally Miss Bev began to talk to him. And he began to talk to her. That's a skill that children must learn. And that you must teach them. So I took Benny into the auditorium. And I said, Benny, you like to read books? He said, yes. First of all, I asked him what skill was, and he gave me a textbook answer. He said, it's an ability to do something. I said, you like to read books. I said, think of people as books. They have 1,000 stories inside of them. It's your job to find those stories by asking them questions. It's a skill you need to learn. So I sent him back into the fellowship hall. I said, find an adult and find out something about them. So I see him meandering and wandering around the adults. And again, this is something proactively you as parents need to send your kids in the midst of adults, having them actually do. Send them on assignments to do these things. Send Hannah into the church and say, go find an adult and tell me 5 things about somebody. You see? A skill. And so he comes back and he finds out that Ladybug got how she felt when she went on some ride at some kind of amusement park. I said, that doesn't count. I said, go find somebody how long they've been married and how many kids. That scared me. But he found, who did he find? He found Jean Church. Found out she'd been married 38 years, has 2 children and 4 grandchildren. And of course, he walks back up and tells me, Jean's looking at me like, what's... Teach them to talk to adults, to look them in the eyes, to be respectful, and how to conduct personal relationships and skills to get to... All right, questions, comments?
How long does it take to do that with a very shy child?
I think you begin with family members. I think you begin with family members for the child. You talking about Tyler?
Can we just embrace being an introvert?
Both of them.
No, because they're going to have to go on.
That's what it is.
Who are you talking about? Tyler?
Yeah.
All right. So Tyler can take somebody, he can go talk to Landon, because he's comfortable with Landon, and find out 5 things about Landon that he doesn't know. And just work him out, because he's just going to, this is a skill that adults don't know how to do.
I never mastered that with her when she was growing up.
Well, this is hard work. This is hard work, but it's work that's worth it. Because how many times, look at this society. Go out to your restaurants. Look at the adults. Look at the adults. What are we doing? We're doing this. We've lost the skill to interpersonally relate to one another. You know? No. The reading of books. I hope all you parents are having your kids read books. I mean, most young people can't read beyond the length of a text. Their minds are mush because they can't put together paragraph upon chapter upon book and build into their mind this case study. This is a side note, I'm just going to say it. You know when the great writers learned to write? Most of them had miserable childhoods and escaped those miserable childhoods by reading the classics that came before them. Do you know that? Dickens. I'm reading a lot of Dickens now. He had a miserable childhood. And he escaped that by reading the classics. That's how he learned to write. All you kids need to be reading the classics. Okay? Reading, whatever level they can read to learn to read beyond the text. All right, any comments about that? By the way, don't roast other people around your kids. Do it privately. Don't do it at all.
No, do it privately, for sure.
Absolutely.
Landon got him.
What's that?
Landon got me and Caleb real good.
Yeah.
With his teacher.
Were you roasting your parents?
We weren't roasting anybody.
We weren't roasting anyone, but
He misunderstood what
he
we
misunderstood our conversation about his teacher, but of course
Yeah.
went to his teacher and
Grandparents, don't talk bad about a child's parents. Parents, don't talk bad about a child's grandparents. You know, follow me? Don't talk bad about your preacher. In front of any authority figure, teacher, the president, don't disrespect any authority figure in front of your kids. Don't do it. I don't care how you feel about any authority figure, don't do it. Because they're an authority in your child's sphere, and they need to learn respect for the position of that authority. Absolutely not. Okay? No matter how you feel about whatever goes on, that policeman pulls you over, it's yes, sir. And after you get that ticket and those kids are in the back seat, you turn around to those kids and say, that policeman was doing the right job. Daddy was speeding and I deserve to pay this ticket. Because they'll never forget that. See? So anyway, hard work. All right. All right, a couple more and then I'll open it up for questions. Expose them to a lot of different types of people, a lot of different kinds of situations. Expose them to all of life. Introduce them to a lot of different types of people, a lot of different types of situations. Get them out into the rub of life. Let them see you in the best of situations and the worst of situations. Expose them to all sorts of people in all sorts of situations. All right, let's see if there's anything. John?
I'll mention, Ben's been in the children's choir for a couple of weeks now. And on Saturdays, his seat is right next to an older girl that is blind. And each week, he's been talking to her more and more and learning about her. And it's a really good experience for him to, have that. So you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It makes him compassionate to others and understand that everyone,
Yeah. The more you can get a kid involved in serving other people, because kids are naturally selfish and self-centered, the more you can get them helping in a food line or any kind of situation where they're serving other people, they watch you serve, that's vital, that's important. Anything you can do to get them off of themselves. That the world doesn't, your kids think the world evolves around them, right? You know that. They come in the world selfish and self-centered and basically desperately evil. Your children are evil. Okay, they got this thing going on. They're really little savages is what they are. But it's our job to take them and mold them, and it's our job. I'm never discouraged with my grandkids or any kids that misbehave. Never. Because that's what I expect. It's our job to correct them and discipline them and love them and nurture them and not discourage them. Don't allow misbehavior to go on and they get frustrated and yell at them and scream at them. Get it all, don't get frustrated and just yell at them because that's discouraging to them. Handle disciplined issues right when they come up. Be decisive. Don't get frustrated. Do something to change the behavior. Because when you bury that stuff and ignore the attitudes and ignore the behavior and let it go because you're just too tired to deal with it, it gets buried down there, and then so you're going to start screaming and hollering. And when you do that, you're out of control and they disrespect you. We all have teachers in schools that scream. That's one of the cardinal sins of a teacher is to holler and scream. Amen? Because when you scream in front of a classroom, you're out of control and they got you. They got you then. It's the same with a kid, okay? A parent should walk quietly and carry a big stick. They should fear you. They should fear you, okay? They should have a reverent awe of you. They really should. Be rough, and yet be loving. Be kind. Keep them off kilter. Now look, and I could keep talking, but I want to open it up for questions. You have dynamics with your kids. Do you know what dynamics are? John, explain to us what dynamics are. You nodded.
I agree.
Do you know what?
it's between him and I, but we know, we
All
see it in
right,
our.
Whitney, what's dynamics?
Like my relationship, I can use Addie, my relationship with Addie is completely different. It's a different dynamic, like we're around each other, it's different. I parent her differently, and I should do more like he does, because exactly what you're saying, she fears him. They have a different relationship than her and I do.
Yeah.
Like his discipline, like my dynamic with her is more, I cater to her more motherly to her, whereas he is
Rougher?
rougher. But but she loves him just as.
They like it when you're rough. Hobart, what's the little boy that you gave me to walk across the parking lot?
Grayson?
You almost forgot Grayson's name.
Yeah.
I know you.
I had that anger issue today with him.
Oh, okay. He was lagging behind, kind of walking slow. And I turned around and I said, boy, hurry up. You know, I kind of got onto him. He kind of get like that, and he double timed it and stayed right with me. And so it's good to have a command, but dynamics are what your child is used to you doing, okay? So if you change your dynamics, if you go out of here and go, I'm going to change a little bit, I'm used to rescuing them or used to tying their shoes or dressing them or doing this for them, or I'm not going to, you're going to go through a time of transition where they're a little bit, wait a minute, I've always had it like this, and you got to be willing, John?
In the field, we call it extinction, where you to a certain point, it's
Did you just use a
always been that way.
psychological term?
Psychological.
I'm impressed. Say it
It's
again.
extinction where,
Is extinction?
yeah, where you take.
I thought it was extension.
Extinction.
Extinction.
Where
Because the help is gonna be.
the help, yes, is gone. So they now learn, it takes them a while, may take them 4, 5, 6.
Your help is extinct?
It depends on the kid, but they come to a point where they say, Dad's not gonna help me, and I need to do it on my own.
I'm on my own.
And now then you've broken the extinction point, and then every time it's that way.
You gotta push the little buzzards out of the nest and let them fall down. There was a holiday that we worked at the post office, and there was nobody working but Felicia and I. 2 clerks, line out the door, and our glorious supervisors left the building. There was no backup. And at one point, Felicia looked over at me in desperation, and this is what she said: "We are so alone." I'll never forget that moment. Your kids need to experience, I am so alone. And that's good. I don't know what it is, but we hate to think that our children are experiencing anxiety and this sense of, but they have to experience it because they're going to experience anxiety in their lives, and they have to deal. You know what the term snowflake is? Can somebody tell me what a snowflake is? Oh, come on. It's a term in our society. Sandy, you know what a snowflake is?
I know what the snow is.
It's the one that melts down easily.
Overly sensitive.
I can name a few.
Okay, you know a few people that are snowflakes. Caleb, tell us what snowflake
It
is.
is someone that melts down pretty easily, has quick triggers, that they would all set them off, and they melt down to complete hysteria or just
Over
in
any
a ball of
level of
confusion.
You do not want to raise snowflakes. You want to raise people that can go out in our society and handle conflict and handle anxiety and have that tools in their belt to be able to handle life and conquer it and not fall apart on the first job they come to. Because they're going to come to jobs with bosses, Hobart, that are idiots, right? You work for some idiots?
Yeah.
You're online. Your idiots' bosses might be watching this and streaming. It is what it is. Okay. Don't do that. No, okay. This is not going to go on anyway. So anyway, we'll shut it down before that point. Absolutely. We were done a while back. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Look, I don't ask you to agree with everything I've got in here. But I watch my grandchildren respond, and I don't always make the right moves with the grandkids, but I love them, and they love me, And when I tell them to do something, they pretty much do what I tell them to do. And I'm rough with them when I need to be rough with them. I'm loving with them all the time, but sometimes that love barks a little bit. And I keep them off kilter. I tell them all on a regular basis that I think there's basically something wrong with them. And they love it. They all ask, Pop, do you think there's something wrong with me? I said, I think there's something wrong with you. Okay, good. You know? You just got to keep them off kilter. And so all right, I see Wjitney and then I see April.
Just a statement. I just want to say, as much as, and I can attest to this, and I think all four of us can, that our kids love, are obsessed with coming over to your house and spending time with y'all. So whatever is, I mean, I know you're really strict with them, but they absolutely adore both of y'all.
See, I love them, and I'm strict with them, but I have fun with them, and I wrestle with them, and I take them out in the woods, and we shoot the shotgun, we shoot the BB gun, not a shotgun. We haven't got to the 20 gauge yet. We haven't got to the 20 gauge yet, but we shoot the BB gun together, and so we do things together, and we dance and we laugh, but when it's time to go to bed, you're quiet, you go to bed, I don't hear anything from you, and you know what you're going to get when you don't. All right, so April?
Okay, you know our dilemma. We're raising grandkids.
Yes.
And then we always have grandkids come over on weekends.
Yes.
Now, if they're grown children that own those children, we don't always agree with discipline.
Right.
We're a little more firmer than they are, but when their kids get out of hand, the first thing they do is call us. What do I do? Eli's not doing this. He's acting up in school, blah, blah, blah. Grayson's, you know. So in that, Hobart's usually the one they call. Me, I'm like, beat them, send them to bed, do something, just, you know.
Yeah.
And, but Hobart, that's the one they usually call. And he's had to tell Eli, that's been acting up in school lately, I'm going to come over there, I'm going to put your pants down, and you're going to get it. Well, it straightened him up for a little while, but then there's always the next time. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, so you have some you keep all the time, and then some you don't, right?
We have the three that live with us.
And then some that don't. And it's the ones who don't that they're calling you about. See, that doesn't work because the parents where they're keeping them have to be the authority. You can't do that on the line from a distance.
Well, they want us to be the authoritative. They want us to
and
be
why don't they want
discipline.
to be? And why don't they want to be?
Because they can't. They're like, oh, well,
Okay.
for example, Eli and Grayson's mom, I love my kids, but she disciplines them, and if they change the behavior even for 24 hours, then she'll have some big extravagant gift from Amazon waiting on the porch for
Yeah,
them.
what
Because
that
she
is,
was bad.
unhealthy fusion between, that's why we talked about parents and children separating, where the parents are here and the kids are here. And what you've got there is a parent who draws their self-value from the relationship with a child and their friends. There's not authority, they're friends. And so when there's discipline, I'm worried about the friendship being fractured. So I'm going to pour gifts because I'm worried about this co-equal friendship, because if you're mad at me, it hurts my self-esteem and self-value. So I don't see myself as an authority over you as a parent. I see us as friends. The worst thing that a parent can look at themselves, because parents must not be the friends. They have friends at school. They must not be the friend of their child. They must be the parent of their child. And once they turn 18 and beyond, then they become friends. But that's the problem, obviously, always is with the parent. And that's something that mother needs to understand. And maybe Hobart and you guys can talk to them about that, because that needs to end as far as. But that's a change of dynamic in her mind, where she understands that her value as a human being isn't in a relationship with her child.
Well, we didn't even raise, well, I didn't raise her like that. Hobart's the go-to. Hobart's the nurturer. Anytime when they were growing up, they, something, I'm like, suck it up, get over it, here's some advice, and that's what I did. But Dad.
Yeah.
So, you know, but there still was that discipline regardless
Yeah.
for me and sometimes over. But
Children are smart. Children are smart.
Eli outsmarts her.
Yeah. They know, they know they got you when you begin to play all that gift game and all that compliment game and all that. They know they got you. Yeah. You know, they're just, they're
So
eyeing.
we just need to tell her, kick it back in her.
Oh yeah, you're the authority, and once you discipline, don't give any gifts. And you might try to explain that, or you might sit her down and she could talk to me and send the parents down. I'd love to sit down and talk with them, explain to them exactly what you're doing. But that's a quantum leap for somebody to admit and say that their value, there's, you know, you're doing this with your parent, with your kid, and your value. Our values should come from God, not even from another human being. But when you begin to unnaturally fuse with a child, where your self-value is coming from your relationship with your child, you become enslaved to that child. So if that child's mad at you, you're freaked out. You're freaked out. You can't properly discipline a child when you're scared that that child's mad at you. I don't care if my grandkids are mad at me. I tell them I'm mad at you. Sometimes they say, Pop, I don't like you. I say, well, I don't like you. You know?
Don't tell you that.
Sometimes Lance told me a couple days